In this video, we will be exploring the various mysteries and questions about the nature of reality that have yet to be answered. Some may never be answered, perhaps because we are simply too limited to see the full picture. Consciousness and life itself. A major obstacle that is immediately obvious when trying to explore these topics is that we are trapped in our own heads. Being conscious living beings, it's difficult to objectively study ourselves. But what exactly is consciousness? The bog standard definition that you'll usually get is the state of being aware of and responsive to one's surroundings. But what do these words actually mean? More specifically, what does it mean to be aware? If it's simply a reaction to external stimuli, then a simple earthworm could be classified as an aware, conscious being. One leading model of consciousness is global workspace theory, proposed by Bernard Bars. Essentially, a conscious experience reflects a binding and broadcasting function in the brain, where distributed collections of cortical networks are mobilized. A global workspace interacts with an audience of specialized knowledge sources, which interpret the global signal in terms of local knowledge. Essentially, different parts of the brain specialize in different tasks. The prefrontal cortex is directly involved in sensory consciousness, like vision. But when all the small unconscious processes in the brain come together and spread throughout the brain, this partially explains consciousness. A theatre metaphor can be used for this model, with a spotlight shining on current actors or contents of consciousness, with the audience sitting in the darkness. Another approach is the beast-machine theory, an ancient interpretation of animal life in general. Our consciousness is not related to our intelligence or rationality. Instead, consciousness is experienced by all life forms to some extent. Our experiences and awareness arise from our brain's interaction with our bodies, and every single cell in your body is partially responsible for your state of consciousness. It's a purely biological process, and our consciousness cannot be explained or understood unless we acknowledge that it can only emerge because we are living creatures. In other words, beast machines. Either way, the precise explanation and answer to the question of consciousness has not yet been unveiled. Why do we exist? A timeless question, no doubt. Why does anything exist? But when you really begin to try and peel back the layers to get to the root of this question, you come to a realization. There is no answer. It doesn't matter how many layers you peel away, or how much knowledge you have. This is one of those rare questions that God himself could not answer. Let's say you are God. You're an omniscient being. Humans are like bacterium in comparison. You are all-knowing. You have infinite power. Even so, you can never prove that you yourself were not created by a higher being. No matter how all-knowing you think you are, it can all be an illusion. And even as a god, you can never uncover this illusion or see beyond it, because greater things than you are behind it. Even as an all-knowing god, you cannot figure out why you exist. This applies to your creators as well. There can always be another layer, a Russian doll that goes on forever. So we have no hope of ever understanding why there is something, or why there is even a possibility for nothing. This is one of those questions that push the boundaries of human language. There aren't enough words in the English language to properly express it, or in the entire world. But I did the best I could. Time. The real power behind everything. It is responsible for gravity and your existence. But does it really flow in any direction outside of our brains? One model suggests that all points in time exist simultaneously, and that our forward movement through it is simply an illusion created by our brains. This would mean that the past, present, and future exist simultaneously. This could also mean that you are immortal. Not in the way that you think though. You can only experience reality when you're alive, of course. You cannot experience anything if you don't exist. Try to think of the nothingness before your birth, for example. What makes this nothingness any different from the nothingness after your death, if all points in time exist simultaneously? Nothing. There is no difference between the period before your birth and the period after your death. You cannot experience either of them. So you may be eternally trapped experiencing your life in an endless loop, following the exact same path every single time, because your conscious experience is the only place you can exist on the timeline of our universe. Everyone that has ever lived, every animal that has ever lived, could be stuck in an endlessly looping existence. If this is the case, death no longer seems that daunting or scary. If anything, life becomes a bit scary. You're trapped in here forever, and there's nothing you can do to get out. After death, your memory of your life is gone, and you experience it all over again, and again, and again. On the topic of time, now, time is responsible for gravity. This is a bit of a difficult concept to explain without using some very sophisticated visuals, but in essence, space-time is curved and warped by massive objects, or just any matter in general, but thanks to the dimension of time, that space-time is constantly contracted into the massive object, which is why objects are attracted to each other, because the space-time they occupy is constantly progressing towards the center of the massive object. Now, one of the greatest current day physics mysteries is, well, it's the impossibility, or the seeming impossibility, of unifying general relativity and quantum field theory. If someone managed to do this, unify the two scientific theories and make them work together, they would have discovered the theory of everything. But things like black holes currently prevent this from being a reality. Basically, we don't understand what happens at the center of a black hole. General relativity just can't explain that, and probably won't be able to explain that until we unify the two theories. And also, on top of that, there's stuff like Hawking radiation, and the fact that we haven't found gravitons yet, which are sort of needed for this whole quantum gravity thing to actually work. But who knows? Maybe one day.